Hey, what's up, guys? This is the Eternal Phoenix again, coming at you with another video. So, I wanted to go and record this, and I found this. I was digging around in the National Archives, and I was looking for something totally different that I'd found about a Trinity Lee, I think it's Arizia, and the date on it was March 21st, 2004. But I found this, from President Ragan, I believe, in 1983, August 9th. That was my grandmother's birthday, by the way. August 9th was my grandmother, Nana Janice Hall's birthday. And it was at 1 p.m. And it's a Saturday. And this is what it says. It says, thank you. This is a presidential address to the American GI Forum. Okay, and he goes, thank you very much. Let me say right off that our administration knows how interested and responsive John is to your concerns. John is easily one of the most experienced and powerful members of the Senate. He'd been a great friend to you. He's one of the major reasons America is moving towards strength and prosperity, and I join with you in your salute to him. Seeing John and all of you is a great pleasure. You know it's an odd thing, but the farther we get from Washington, the better I feel. As a Westerner, of course, I do feel at home here in Texas. For one thing, the food is better. You know about my inclinations in this area. After all, you're looking at the fellow who served enchiladas to the Queen of England. I confess, though, that sometimes when my cabinet meetings start to drag, I wish I had some jalapeno jelly beans to pass around. Then we'd see government officials move quickly. I relish every stop we make while we're on the road, but I have to tell you that this gathering today is one I've especially looked forward to. Speaking to the GI Forum gives me a chance to do something that not many American presidents have done, to say something important to all Americans of Hispanic descent, something that should have been said a long time ago. I don't think this presidential statement ever got out. If it did, they covered it up, so I wanted to read this aloud to the American Hispanics, because I believe y'all deserve to hear this. Okay, it says, here, I'm going to just, speaking to the GI Forum gives me a chance to do something that not many American presidents have done, to say something important to all Americans of Hispanic descent, something that should have been said a long time ago. The GI Forum was founded by Hispanic Americans who wore our country's uniform, who fought in America's wars, who account for some of the most astonishing acts of valor in personal sacrifice in the great and long history of our nation's armed services. I don't think I have to recount those deeds to you. I know you're proud of them, and I know they are part of the proud heritage you pass on to your children. That's why I thought some of you might like to know about something that happened recently in Washington. This was in 1983. He goes, No, you can relax. I don't mean the Congress finally managed to raise taxes or launch another raid on the Treasury. Rest assured, we're keeping an eye out for that. What I want to mention is something that I think says a whole lot about Hispanic Americans, their valor as a people, and their contribution to America's freedom. You know, in the Pentagon, there's a wonderful tradition of dedicating the hallways in that vast building to some of the great military figures of our history. Now, like myself, most of you were in the military, probably didn't spend a whole lot of time in the Pentagon during your career. But, as president, I've had a chance to see the exhibits, the memorabilia, and the personal effects in the hallways dedicated to great men like Generals MacArthur and Patton. Salute to you, Generals. And I think some of you may be familiar with the book by Raoul Morin, Among the Valiant. It notes that Hispanic Americans have a greater percentage of Medal of Honor winners than any other group in American history. Well, recently, there was a new dedication at the Pentagon, and that dedication was not to a single person, but to a hallway of names like, and it blanks it out. It blanked out names like, so I want to know why they did that. That's bullshit. I'm proud to tell you today that the Pentagon's Hall of Heroes, there is now an exhibit called Hispanics in America's Defense. The portraits of the .37 Medal of Honor winners. I think that's supposed to say 37 Medal of Honor winners, because I don't think you can have .37, but 37 Medal of Honor winners. That was in 1983, by the way, of Hispanic descent. I hear it's a real crowd pleaser, and it ought to be. I hope many of you have a chance to visit it, but whether you get there or not, it's something you should all be very proud of. That exhibit is only a small sign of what I see when I visit our military installations or ships throughout the world, Hispanic names and faces everywhere. For me, those names are a sign of all you have given and continue to give to America. America has always been blessed by the ethnic diversity of her people and the rich heritages they brought to our shores. But the contribution of Hispanic Americans, your devotion to your country, your belief in the values of family, work, neighborhood, and religion, these are among our most precious gifts. And so today, and perhaps the first president who really had the chance to say this to you, this was Ronald Reagan, and on behalf of every American, I want to thank Hispanic Americans who have served so valiantly in our armed forces and who serve today. Yours is a record of honor and devotion that makes not just you, but every American proud. But you know better than most that Hispanic Americans have not always been remembered for their service or their valor, have not always been treated as they deserved, as gallant patriots and as a people of dignity and worth entitled to the respect and admiration of their fellow citizens. I'm sorry to say that this was particularly true right at the end of the World War II, and I'm going to have to say the beaches in Normandy. How terribly ironic is it that those who had fought so valiantly for their country should return home to confront discrimination in education, healthcare, housing, employment, and other areas. But true to your traditions, your response to discrimination was unhesitating and courageous. One of your number, Dr. Hector Perez Garcia, a physician and surgeon in Corpus Christi, founded this forum. Under Dr. Garcia's leadership, a few veterans gathered to fight for the rights of Mexican Americans, and then with only a year's time, there were over 100 chapters in Texas alone. Word of your courage and your success spread throughout neighboring states and then the entire nation. Today you have 500 chapters in approximately 200 cities in 33 states upholding the rights of Hispanic Americans. I want to know why they didn't talk about this in Texas government at all, or United States history. That should have been put in there. That's my opinion. As you fought for the rights of Hispanic Americans everywhere, you helped preserve the dream that began this country, the dream of government that worked for the people and not the other way around, the dream of equal justice under the law, of the right of every man, woman, and child to enjoy the blessings of liberty, not as a function of their class or background, but only because they bore the simple title that proudest of all boasts, I'm an American. The fight you waged against discrimination was every American's fight. Your efforts made America better for all of us, and today, on behalf of your countrymen and on behalf of President Reagan, who has passed away, I thank you for that too, and so does he. Because this was his speech. As Americans of Hispanic descent increasingly take their rightful place in the front ranks of our nation's leadership, I hope you will never forget what you owe to those who began so much here in Texas 25 years ago. Dr. Garcia, all of us pay tribute to you today. I know I speak for everyone here when I say to you, sir, I'm just going to say it in English, but he said it in Spanish, may you live many good years in health, and I might add, and lots of wealth. And they admitted the money part. They said that they in the header above the speech, they left it out on purpose. Now, I don't need to tell you that this struggle against discrimination is not over. It is never over, and I want you to know that this administration stands beside you as you continue the struggle. I think most of you know there are more than 125 Hispanics in key positions. This is in 1983 in this administration, and I have instructed the Justice Department to maintain a special vigilance with regard to your civil rights complaints. I hope you know, too, of the excellent working relationship we have had with the GI Forum, and I particularly want to single out in this regard the efforts of your national chairman, Jose Cano, I think that's how you say it. We have not always agreed in every particular, but in every particular thing, but I think your distinguished chairman would agree we have worked well together to accomplish a great deal. My pledge to him is my pledge to you. You have a friend in Washington. As long as I'm there, the Oval Office will be a place of warmth and hospitality for Hispanic Americans. That was Ronald Reagan. By the way, I don't want to be like anybody get it mixed up that I'm trying to speak for the president now. Ladies and gentlemen, the concern you have shown for justice for your own people is in the best tradition of America. But you should be especially proud that even in the 1970s, when the demands of special interest politicians were in full cry, you always advanced your own cause within the framework of advancing your country's country's interest first. Fuck. We have just emerged from the special interest era, a sad era where political conditions were built with an eye towards what's good for the next election, not for what's good for the country. There are some people who would have the American people forget that the kind of politics did what that kind of politics did to this nation. especially the two Americans who were not on the higher rungs of the social economic ladder, like me. For it was those Americans, many of them of Hispanic descent, who suffered the most from the economic mess left to us in 1980. It was those Americans who were deprived of the only chance they ever really wanted, the chance to show how far and how fast their God-given talents and personal dreams could take them in a free society. Today, many of those who still practice the politics of the past are pleading for your votes. They want to take you back to the days of diminishing opportunity, of special interest, politics of tax, and spend and spend. And today, they're still doing that. Let me remind you of what those days were like. In the decade of the 70s, it was special interest politics that tripled federal spending. In the 5 years from 1976 to 1981, it was special interest politics that doubled federal taxes. All that spending and all that taxing steadily mounted until it was draining every bit of life and energy out of the economy like it is now. Jobs and opportunities were drying up, and it was hurting lower-income Americans more than anyone. Still is. Think back to the desperation felt in so many American households as the weekly paycheck grew smaller and smaller and the weekly grocery bill grew higher and higher. Much of it thanks to the federal taxation and federally inspired inflation. When we took office, we had the worst inflation since the Second World War. Sorry to say, no, that's no longer. This one has been the worst one. Interest rates at 21.5% and business failures and unemployment on the rise. The real purchasing power of the American family had taken a nosedive of blank in blank years. But all the politicians could recommend was the same medicine that had made the patient sick in the first place. They said we suffered from malaise, but they told us it was our fault, that we wanted too much, that we had to give up our hopes and cut down our expectations, that we had to tell our children not to dream as we'd once dreamed. The bureaucratic profiteers were in full control. Even as the economy was collapsing around them, they could only come up with more and more schemes to superintend their disasters and run our lives, even down to restricting credit cards and supervising thermostats. Tell me something, the United States government. Restricting credit cards is 1983. We had paper food stamps in 1990. Make that make sense. But there's a strain of pride and independence and common sense that runs through this country that no fast-talking chicken in every pot politician has ever really escaped for long. From the very beginning of this country, our people have had an uncanny knack for reminding politicians who's really in charge here, who it is under the American Constitution that has the final say. And so the people spoke. They spoke for their future and their children's future. They spoke for change. And today I'm speaking for that same ideology. And that's when this administration went to work. So Reagan's administration went to work whenever the people spoke. Even as the special interest politicians predicted doom and disaster, because that's what they're doing now. They said we couldn't do it. They fought us all the way, but we cut the growth in federal spending by 40%. They said we couldn't do it. They fought us. And then they cut every American's income taxes by 25%. They said we couldn't do it again, and they fought us all the way, but we enacted a wide-ranging package of other tax cuts, like abolishing the marriage penalty and increasing individual retirement account deductions. Marriage penalty, wow. That's new. And then increasing individual retirement account deductions. They say we couldn't do it, and they fought us all the way, but we came up with the most important reform of them all. Next year, your income taxes will be indexed to the rate of inflation, and that means that you won't be pushed into higher and higher tax brackets by inflation. Wow. And yet, they do. They do that. They push us into a higher tax bracket, and yet we still get less back. We get less back now because of this shit. In a little over, that's 2.5 years, we've moved from economic disaster to economic growth. The results are coming in. We cut the prime rate about half. We've brought inflation down by 80%, and we've got the economy growing at an annual rate of 8.7%. We've increased by a blank in the purchasing power of the average American family of 4. So what was the average American family of 4 purchasing power then? Because that was blank. Last month we had the biggest percentage drop in the unemployment picture in more than 23 years. But it doesn't stop with the economy. Remember a few years ago when American prestige seemed to decline with every new crisis, when Soviet intervention on 4 continents was going unchecked and even unnoticed. I wonder why they were intervening. Anybody want to fill that in? I mean, I can honestly say maybe the fact that, I don't know, the bullshit that's going on right now. It says, remember when American embassies were sacked, when our hostages were taken, when our government seemed to permit itself to be intimidated by every two-bit dictator in this hemisphere and elsewhere. Remember how our national defenses were crumbling? Why? Why were y'all so intimidating? Intimidated? Why were you so intimidated by other leaders? Because they had better ideas than you? Yeah, I'm recording. Because they had... No, you're fine. Because they had better ideas than you? Is that really what it was? It was a playground tactic? And your national defenses weren't actually crumbling. You just instilled the fear that they were crumbling. So therefore you caused panic for nothing. Just like you do now. Today our defenses are being rebuilt. The Soviet Union's attempts to force itself on the rest of the world are checked, which is wrong. That should be United States government attempt to force itself on the rest of the world. They aren't forcing. They're just sitting back chilling. I haven't seen them force themselves on us, not one time. Just like any other country as well. We are moving ahead forcibly with the hard bargaining that will result in realistic and verifiable arms control treaties. Nope. Nope. Let me say here's something about a foreign policy area I know you have special interest in. Our policy in Central America can be very simply put and clearly understood. We want to see the peoples of those nations escape the poverty and oppression of their past. We want to see them move towards societies where democratic rights are protected and a decent standard of living is assured. Okay, I get that, but like, what about the people now here that are living just like that in poverty? Because I don't know if y'all have noticed, but America's kind of become a third world country at this rate. And it's not our own, and not all of it's all our fault. We're stuck in a box because they tell us that we have to stay in this box, and guess what? I'm busting out. So, and I'm bringing fucking hell with me. Because I'm done being told, and I'm done being oppressed, and I know that my fellow Americans would probably agree with me on this. Because, I mean, like, that's all we're trying to do is to escape the poverty and oppression from the past. And y'all just keep us there. It says, we want to see them move towards societies where democratic rights are protected and a decent standard of living is assured. We will bend every effort through economic and technical assistance to help them accomplish this goal. But I know you agree with me when I say we also know this much with certainty. They'll never have a chance to build that kind of future, that kind of freedom and prosperity if they are surrendered to the tender mercies of Fidel Castro, Colonel Gaddafi, and their superintendents in Moscow. That wasn't true. To a degree. It wasn't... I mean, like, honestly, here's the thing. I feel... This is what I feel. And, I feel that those three people were probably coming together to try to negotiate partially, but it was like... it's like always miscommunication error. You know, they were just doing what they thought was right from their perspective and their paradigm, because that's the only thing that they knew. And they never had anybody to tell them or teach them anything different. I mean, and that's the truth. And then we judge so harshly by other people's fuck-ups when, first of all, have you ever thought that they don't have anybody to teach them how to think differently, so that's all they know? Same with us. Like, we obviously need a better fucking governmental system. Because we just keep repeating the same shit over and over and over and over and over again until we actually do have a war. That's stupid. And wasteful of human life and resources. We can't let that happen. We won't let it happen. The goal of our policy south of the border is plainly stated. The Americas belong to the peoples of the Americas and nobody else. Okay, what does the North American consist of? Because then you have Canada that's a part of Britain, or UK, I'm sorry. Canada's a part of the UK, and then you have Mexico that's its own thing. So it would just be solely the United States only. You can't include those two because they're connected. They are a part of they're part of different governmental structures. You can't just claim it because it's already linked. It says, now I realize, of course, that the naysayers and doom criers are not exactly going to trip over each other in giving this administration credit for our strengthened foreign policy. So they didn't even give him credit for this at all. Like, even though that there might have been some things that could have been tweaked or fixed, they still didn't give him credit for this speech, and the American Hispanics never even heard about this until today. And I'm going to post it, so don't even try to stop me. They have some problems I can sympathize with. Just think of all those campaign speeches that have to be rewritten. The record itself is clear. I don't believe that you and the rest of the American people will let those special interest politicians forget the facts of history. But they did. Because the American people didn't know how to take no for an answer. They don't. Because they believe in their future, and because they rejected the councils of retreat and retrenchment, because they supported this administration's efforts to get our measures through the Congress. America's growing in pride and strength at home and abroad. But the thing is they did it in a way that wasn't pushy, and it wasn't throwing a fit because they didn't get their way. They respected each other back then. They didn't take no for an answer against adversary, against the actual, like, real enemy. Not pushing people, not pushing their beliefs and things upon other countries. It's just gotten worse over the years, which is insane. It seems to me that the special interest politicians and the naysayers have some explaining to do to us. I mean, I agree with that too today. The special interest politicians and the naysayers need to explain some shit to the American people. They're the ones who said we couldn't do it, but we're going to do it again. They're the ones who said it wouldn't work, but it's working. And never forget that they are the ones who fought us all the way and are still fighting us today. The theme of this convention, is the Hispanic American Renaissance. During your discussions, I hope you can bear in mind the real message he had for them. A message that goes far beyond the statistics that he's recited or the economic growth that they were enjoying them. Because back then they were enjoying themselves. They were having fun, but the crime was, but it wasn't as high as it is now. The more suppressive that they've gotten over the years, the more that it's because the crime has went up. For the fundamental question before you today is not only the Hispanic American Renaissance, but the American Renaissance. Do we keep America upward bound and on the move again, or do we return to the days of big government or economic stagnation? We will hold fast to the values of work and family, or will we return to never-ending government intrusions into how we spend our paychecks and how we raise our children? That's happening today. Right now. There isn't time here today to outline all the other initiatives we have taken in this administration to give back to the American people control over their own lives and destinies. Even as we're fighting to restore prosperity at home and our prestige abroad, we dealt firmly and imaginatively with the menace of crime and drugs that has cost us so dearly, especially here in Texas. We've expanded the success of the South Florida Task Force by establishing 12 similar task forces throughout the nation, including one in Houston. That means more than 1,200 new investigators and prosecutors will be cracking down on drug racketeers. I get it. But at the same time, nowadays, you have more pharmaceutical companies putting out just as much drugs that does the same thing as the drug cartels. You're you're no better than the drug cartels at this point. No offense to the drug cartels, because they're just doing what they have to do. You're just doing it to be greedy and profit off of people's pain. Because I bet you at least fucking 80% of the drug, at least 80% of the drug cartels don't like doing it, but they don't have any other fucking choice because of this shit right here. Just like us. We're in the same boat they are. We just fucking have a little bit more resources than they do. Sometimes, depending. Respectfully. We've launched a frontal assault on organized crime with the recent appointment of the Kefauver-style commission headed by a distinguished jurist that will hold regional hearings throughout the country. In the area of education, we spoke on a national level for the end of politicizing of education, for bringing excellence back to our schools and better opportunities for our school children. Do you know that our education system is the actual, I want to say it's the lowest in the world. Norway, it has the best education system in the entire world, I think it is. It's either Norway or Sweden. No, it's Norway. It's Norway. You know why? Because they don't do everything to a standardized test. They don't do multiple choice. The students have to know the curriculum. Like, they actually have to study, not guess, like 90% Americans do or assume. Ask out of you and me. So he asked, "Here then are the questions before you and before every American in the years ahead. Will we be better off with a future amid growth and opportunity, or one bogged down in lowered expectations and economic decline? Will we choose a future with a booming private sector where young men and women can climb as far as and fast as their native talents will take them, or will Hispanic Americans face a future with an ever-expanding government that multiplies taxation and bureaucracy while it suffocates enterprise and initiative? Will it be better off relying on our pride, respect, and accomplishments as a people, or must we sink into dependency through government busing and quotas and all the other elaborate social schemes dreamed up in Washington during the past 40 years? And what about our national security? Which road will they take? Which road will we take there? Will we be better off with a future where America's interests are firmly protected and defended? Or will we choose a future where the only clear goal seems to be a deal cut at almost any price with America's adversaries in the world? Hispanic Americans are at the threshold. I think you can sense your own power, the extent to which you will influence America and the next generations. The decision you make in the next few years will have an enormous and powerful impact on your society, or on our society as well. As we move toward to the end of the century and into the next, you'll be increasingly in positions of power in America, and your fellow Americans will look to you for leadership and guidance. And he goes, I urge you today to remain true to the values, the devotion to God, family, and country that have made you the proud people you are today. I urge you to hold fast to the dreams you have always had for your children, to reject those that say that your dreams cannot fashion your future, that your destiny is not in your own hands, but in the hands of unelected bureaucrats and social engineers in Washington. So cherish those dreams. Cherish them because they are what brought you or your fathers or their fathers to this country and have contributed so much to America's growth and vitality. America is a willingness of the heart. F. Scott Fitzgerald once said, well, the hearts of Hispanic Americans have always been willing. You've defended America on 1,000 battlefields. You have strengthened our economy, enriched our culture, broadened our perspectives. A man will not sell you his life for all the money in the world. William Manchester once wrote of his days as a Marine in the South Pacific, but he will give it to you for a piece of colored ribbon. You have always understood this better than most. You have known that the values, the faith, and the dreams of people mean far more to them than 1,000 promises of an easy life or a comfortable existence. You have reminded us that independence, honor, and devotion to country and family are more than just words. You have stood by those values, and you have lived them, and you have been an inspiration to your children and to your countrymen. So don't ever forget that. As I said when I began, I have come here today to thank you for that. But I came here too to speak on the future and to challenge you to the role you must play in it. Because the people have spoken for change, America is better off today than she was a few years ago. She's not anymore. Now it is in your hands to continue that progress through this century and the next. Don't let America sink back into the boredom and mediocrity of collectivism, into the politics of envy, protest, and special interest. Keep America upward bound, on the move. Keep her always that shining city, that inspiration, that last best hope to all the oppressed and helpless of the world. God bless you, and God bless America.